The Social Economy Action Plan has been adopted the 9th of December 2021. It's a milestone in recognizing the social economy's crucial role in building a sustainable, fair, green and inclusive post-COVID future. Social investors are key players in the plan. They have a necessary practical perspective and they have the know-how to help solve critical challenges, such as access to EU funding. In the mission to improve access to finance, we need to put public and private partnership at the core of the debate. Only then can we address the mismatch between supply and demand. Improving access to funding is a goal of the Social Economy Action Plan. For a perspective on how this will happen and why is important, let's talk to Laura Catana, a European Investor Relations Manager at FASE.
I believe social enterprises are crucial to the European economy. First of all, they develop innovative solutions to some of the most urgent problems we have in society, be it climate change, social justice, healthcare or education. But also they develop new, markets. They work where other commercial players have not found a viable business model. They turn beneficiaries of non-profit, operations into clients, into customers. And maybe just to give you an example, because that always helps, I worked a few years ago with an entrepreneur from the Netherlands. He developed a social enterprise called Healthy Entrepreneurs, and they bring healthcare products and services in very remote villages in the south, in Africa, in particular in Kenya and Uganda. They bring these products where there is no pharmacy and where these people actually use a big part of their income to actually get to access these products. So instead, he brings these products to their communities and is able to lower the out-of-pocket expenditure for healthcare products and services by 60%. Yeah? This is just a tiny example of the value of these social enterprises for our communities. And if we want to sum up, I think if we do not invest EU funding into them, it means that we are lowering our competitiveness because we're drying out the pipeline of such projects. And also we are depriving society of basic needs sometimes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for highlighting the importance of EU funding for the development of social enterprises. What is the role of social investors in public-private partnership to foster the social economy?
I believe also they play a crucial role in this story. But maybe we start from the public side of the public-private partnerships. I think if we expect the public administration or the public policymakers to solve all our social and environmental problems, I don't think we stand a chance to succeed. I think while they do have a huge and important role to play, they will never be able to cover all the problems and in particular not at the speed that society needs. And I think COVID has shown that indeed we do need private actors to partner up with the public. I think that what the public also doesn't have necessarily is the local knowledge of the markets. They might not have necessarily the expertise or the connections that a social entrepreneur would need. So that's why social investors play a very important role. They can act as mentors, not only as capital providers. So I think the combination of social impact investors, private investors, and the public policymakers and investors, I think it's very, very important.
What do you view as main obstacles for social entrepreneurs seeking access to finance?
On one hand, social enterprises sometimes develop very disruptive solutions, and for these solutions, maybe the customers don't have full availability to pay, which basically translates into a very hybrid business model, sometimes even combining a non-profit and a for-profit activity, which is obviously seen as more risky by investors. So that's one. The second element, I think, is the fact that they sometimes operate in markets where there is not enough available infrastructure. So they need to actually develop, whether it's physical or it's more like lack of talent. They need to raise awareness on certain topics because otherwise they're not able to convince the users, clients, beneficiaries to actually, take benefit from those innovations. And also, I think it's really important to understand that this kind of elements have big implications also on the type of returns that they can make. So if an investor expects outsized returns, financial returns from such enterprises, not always their expectations might be achieved. And last but not least, I think the fourth element refers more to the ticket sizes that impact ventures might have or might offer investors, which can be seen as too low maybe for traditional investors, institutional investors, and sometimes too big for foundations or business angels. Yeah? So many times we work with early stage impact ventures that are post-seed, so post-idea phase. They are already on the market, they have proof of traction, they have some customers, they validated the business model and the impact theory of change. And at that point, business angels might be, a bit uncomfortable because they might prefer to invest in earlier stages. So that's why, I think one of the biggest obstacles it's really the fact that they are in between different worlds and somehow struggle to, convince anybody to invest in them. There are also some obstacles that come from the investor side. I think many investors that we've been working with still operate from this kind of entrenched ideology that sub-market rates of return are not good investing, not to say bad investing. And I think this is something we still need to, not accept and challenge and provide examples. Because we talked earlier about hybrid business models. Such models often need other types of financing instruments, and also this kind of enterprises cannot be expected to create this kind of aggressive growth, J-curves and so on and so forth, and obviously not necessarily the same exit pathways. I think it's important also for investors to understand that there are other financial instruments available. We work a lot with mezzanine capital, for example, where you can structure your exit in a way that you can generate a decent, moderate or reasonable return, but maybe not the classic VC return that people hope for, because not always they're able to generate.
Thank you very much for summarizing the obstacles, but also for giving suggestions to investors. What do you expect will be the main role of InvestEU program in developing the social finance?
Well, I think the EU has played a very important role in the past, I think the past 10 years, in actually developing the social finance and impact investing market in Europe. So let's first talk about the past. I think the capital they provided, the technical assistance, as well as the standards that they created on the market were critical to develop this market. Yeah? And if I think of standards, things like the impact carry that is now almost widespread across almost all impact funds in Europe, this is very, very important. For the future, what I can hope is that the EU and the capital provided through InvestEU, the funding, will be used also to tailor the capital available to the needs of impact ventures, like the ones that I have described before, right? So I think so far we have done a lot, but there is still space. So if there are three things where we could use InvestEU to further develop the ecosystem, maybe the first one I could think of is using InvestEU funding to also support impact funds to bake impact incentives in the deal structures. That's one very important thing, because it aligns the interests of investors and the impact ventures, not only around financing and returns, but also around impact. So this is, I think, very, very critical. A second element, I think, focuses on the use of instruments. Yeah? So far we have seen a lot of equity type instruments being invested in impact ventures. But as discussed previously, this is not all. I mean, this works very well for unicorn-like profiles. But for those that are more, service kind of enterprises, equity is not always the right fit. So I think it's really important also for the EU policymaker to think how we could structure InvestEU funding and be, further down the line provided through the capital providers, through the intermediaries, in such a way that these intermediaries can actually, wider their offering of financing instruments. Yeah? Rethink a bit what kind of exits could be there. Rethink a bit what kind of incentives they could have also at individual level, but also through the deals that they have. And last but not least, and maybe this is the most important element, I think the InvestEU funding should allow not only for pari passu capital, but also for asymmetric risk sharing. This is very important because, and we have seen the EU doing it for the first loss guarantee kind of instruments, and it would be great to see it also on the equity side. If the EU is able to take the first loss piece, That means de-risking private investors, which obviously will increase the capital that we will see put into this sector.
Thank you very much. I think there is a need indeed of also clarifying the relationships between the implementing partners of InvestEU and the financial intermediaries and the role that the Commission can play also in the risk sharing. So Laura, what do we need in order to make social enterprises more attractive for investors?
I think on the social enterprise side, there is still a lot of need for more capacity building, like specific one-on-one support and advisory for impact ventures, maybe to become better, more investable, investment ready, to further build their business models, validate. So there are still lots of areas. I think also there is need for more transaction cost support, because as we have mentioned, some of them are really in this missing needle or value of death or pioneer gap, whatever you want to call it. So they are somehow not able to attract investors from any of the investment planets, and the investment size is limited. So really you need, for such enterprises, you need an advisor to take you by hand and help you figure out your way and develop usually a consortium of investors that want to take a certain level of risk and are looking for certain levels of return and impact. So I think also the alignment of investors in that case is very important, and most of the times early stage entrepreneurs just don't know how to handle such rounds. They might even be at their first rounds. Last but not least, I think social enterprises would really benefit from more innovation on the financial side. So blended finance structures, social impact incentives, and all of these. I mean, it's incredible that if you look at the social impact incentives, the SYNC model, they are so developed in Latin America, and I think the Swiss Development Cooperation has played an incredible role in rolling this kind of model out, and we are not seeing them in Europe. So who should do it if not the EU, right? That's a question I have. But I think there is still a lot that investors can do as well. We talked about the entrenched ideology, so that is one. And I think, it's also our role to continue to challenge them. But I think also they maybe should take a step back after having done a certain number of investments in impact ventures with, success or sometimes failure. That's also necessary. It's also now, after 10 years of, keep on talking about impact investing and doing impact investing, maybe it's time to step back and figure out what works and what doesn't, and maybe get some more education, learn about specific business models, hybrid models, ensuring that the real needs of the impact ventures are being addressed, and also thinking about what is the implication of having a hybrid business model on the deal structure, on the exit pathways, and on the alignment in general. So.